Good morning, church. It's good to be back with you. Especially after Sunday when we had those technical difficulties and my sermon had to be spliced in the middle. I hope you got the gist of it, that Jesus hanging on the cross when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Was not really abandoned by God, even though it felt that way. At least that's what I think about it. I know the Bible tells us that Jesus himself was God. For example, in John chapter 1, says that the word, Logos, became flesh and dwelt among men, but it also said that everything was created through the Word. Without him, nothing was made that has been made, it says. In fact, I think the New Testament writers, in order to make sure that we understand that Jesus was God, make a point of saying that Jesus is Creator God. John in John chapter 1, Paul in Colossians chapter 1. See, I think I have that marked here. Yeah. Here's what Paul says in Colossians chapter 1. "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. But the thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him." And again, the writer of Hebrews makes sure that we know that Jesus is divine as well. He says in Hebrews 1 that Jesus is a creator. He was the image of the firstborn of God, and all things were created by him. And so the writer of Hebrews, Paul, and John, I think in order to make sure that we understand that Jesus was God, make sure that we understand that he created everything. He was with God in the beginning, but he also, without him, nothing was made that has been made, as John puts it. And so he was divine. And I said Sunday, God wasn't absent at the cross. God was front and center at the cross because Jesus was on the cross. But at the same time, Jesus was human. Jesus was as human as you and me, which is, a great mystery, the mystery of the incarnation. I think about those times in Jesus' life when he was just, you could see he was human. For example, he went on a journey with his disciples. John chapter 4 talks about it. And it says that they had journeyed during the day, and they had to go through Samaria. Jacob's well was there. This is John 4, verse 6. "And Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well, and then he asked the Samaritan woman, 'Will you give me a drink?'" He was tired. He was thirsty. He got tired and thirsty. We think about Jesus on the Mount of Gethsemane on the night that he was betrayed. He'd been up all day, had a big day, so the Passover dinner and all of that, and then up all night praying. And he was weak, he was tired, and that's when they came and arrested him. They tried to force him to carry the cross, and they wound up getting Simon of Cyrene to take the cross and carry the cross. Jesus was worn out. He was, I think, a strong man. You see some indications of that. He traveled, he did all kinds of things. He drove the money changers out of the temple. But after being up for 24 hours and after being in such emotional stress as he was in the garden, and then being flogged and beaten with a cane, hit on the head and shoulders, he was wiped out. And so they got Simon to carry the cross. He was a man. Hebrews says, again, because Jesus was a man, this is Hebrews chapter 4, "We do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who's been tempted in every way just as we are, yet he did not sin." Fully God, fully man. He was a man. He got tired like a man. He got hungry like a man. He got thirsty like a man. I think he got frustrated like a man. You can see that on certain occasions. And so Jesus on the cross. I think another thing I think about Jesus being a man is the temptation of Jesus recorded in Luke. And I was thinking about this past week. I was thinking about, all these people that have said that they're not afraid of the virus, that God's going to protect them from the virus. And the virus, I've said before, it's not good, it's not bad, it's not evil, it's not a person. It's just a natural thing. It's a physical thing. It's uncaring. It doesn't care how tired you are or what your opinions are or how much faith you have. It's just a natural thing, like Jesus. And what I thought about is when Jesus was tempted. It says in John chapter 4, verse 9, the devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you're the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down from here. For it's written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. But Jesus was subject to the laws of gravity. And if he threw himself off the pinnacle of the temple and the angels didn't catch him, he would have died. His body would have shattered on the rocks beneath the temple. And gravity is just a natural thing. And so Jesus said to the devil, it said, do not put the Lord your God to the test. And I think about that, good reason to stay careful during this time. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. But the main idea that I wanted us to get is that while Jesus was on the cross and he was exhausted and he was in great pain and his body was failing him, he was drowning. The doctors say that's what happens when you're on the cross. His lungs were filling with fluid. He felt abandoned by God and he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And what that says to me is when we're going through terrible times, experiencing horrible grief and pain and disappointment and loss, and it feels like God is a million miles away, we might also want to cry out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But God has not forsaken us. God did not abandon Jesus. God was Jesus on that cross. And we have this high priest who's not unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. He sympathizes with our weaknesses. He knows exactly what we're going through, and he knows what it's like to suffer pain, disappointment, abandonment, and loss. He knows what it's like to die. He's a perfect Savior, and we can trust him. And when we're going through terrible times, we can turn to him and know that he's there. God bless you today.